So anyways, it's wonderful to be here. Just a few introductory remarks. Before I do that, I'd like to invite my good friend, Rabbi Chezi Zionce, to come up and say a few words about the March a little bit.
Thank you, Rabbi. You know, I made the trip here from up north where the Jewish community lives, north of Steele. It's such a pleasure to come south and see there's still some Jews in the old country here. This week's Torah portion is Parshat Vayetze. It's the story of Jacob and the ladder. And we know when Jacob's going up the ladder, the Torah tells us, Malachei Elohim v'yordim bo, that there's angels of God going up and down the ladder. And we know the Torah scholars, I just want to recognize Anita Eckstein, who I've sat on a bus with in Poland, on the hard seats on the tuchus. And it's such a pleasure to see you here in the comfort zone of the north or the central JCC. Anyway, the Torah tells us there are angels going up and down the ladder. And the commentators ask, don't angels, where do they come from? Angels come from heaven. So why are these angels going up and down the ladder? And the Rashi, the great biblical commentator, tells us that he knows that these were Israeli angels. That when Jacob left Israel, the angels had to go up the ladder, back to heaven, and new angels, the diaspora angels, had to come down to guard Jacob. And indeed, at the end of the Torah portion, when Jacob is going back to Israel, the Torah tells us, Vayifku Malachei Elohim, and he met the angels of God. So in fact, this Torah portion establishes that there are angels. You know, it's not nice to talk about my good friend of over 40 years in front of him, but Eli Rubenstein is one of those angels. And he's an angel not only to Holocaust survivors, and has created a whole community, and in sharing a dinner in his honor a couple of years ago, I recognized the love and the respect that the survivor community has around the world for Eli Rubenstein. So first, I just want to applaud you for the great job you do in bringing dignity and purpose to the lives of survivors in this present generation. Secondly, because I'm a longtime friend of Eli, he's dragged me on the march a number of times. And the first time, I just wanted to call back to 1994, when I went on my march for the first time. And I found myself with a group of 125 Torontonians in Poland. And after going on this very quick tour from place to place, that wasn't perhaps as organized and established in those days. We were smaller groups. There were 5,000 of us in total on the march. And as we went from place to place, we found ourselves in the Reform Temple, which is now a museum, the temple in Krakow, and that you had mentioned earlier. We found ourselves in this temple, and we were arguing amongst ourselves if we could say the afternoon service, the Mincha service, because some said we're in a Reformed temple, and others said we're in Poland. You think they make a distinction between the different types of Jews? How can we argue? At that moment, Rabbi Lau, who was the chief rabbi of Israel at the time, entered with his delegation, and they all davened together. And Eli will also teach us about the unity of Judaism and erase the labels that seem to divide us. So I applaud you for that too. But as Rabbi Lau left, and we Jews continued to argue, I noticed a group up above that were watching us. Indeed, they were not only looking at the architecture of the place, not only there to see that, but they also saw us, and they were watching us. And after we finished praying, we finished davening, the tour guide from their group came down, and he engaged with one of our tour guides who spoke Polish. And indeed, this group was from Hungary, a group of non-Jewish people who were watching and touring the Jewish sites of Krakow the way so many people do. And as they looked down, they realized not only were the architecture on display, but we were on display. They were watching us as Jews. And when the leader came to us, they said they had a Jewish family amongst the group. And this Jewish family came and had dialogue with us and told us that their children had never had Jewish names. Because where they lived in Budapest at that time, they didn't do that. So we gathered around here at this temple, and we saw, and we made a circle, and I stood in the middle of the circle with these kids, and I gave them a Jewish name. I remember I asked the parents, what were the names would you like to give? They gave them the names of their grandparents who had died in the Holocaust. And the kids had these Jewish names, and they had wide smiles, and great, good, open eyes, and they beamed. And I saw there, in the Holocaust, we went on march and were living to literally run our hands through the ashes of European Jewry. I saw Tchiyat HaMetim. I saw the resurrection of life, the resurrection of Jewish souls. And indeed, I also recognize that that's what March of Living does. March of Living not only allows us to further the message of the Holocaust, but also resurrects so many of these young Jewish souls. And I applaud March of Living. I've been on it now more than once. And I applaud Ellie and the great work that he does. It's so difficult to do it after so many years, yet he schleps and he moves and he has no sitzfleisch, and he's always moving, as we know. And so a big hand for Ellie Rubenstein. I apologize, I can't stay the whole evening. I have to make the trek back up north and make it by Friday. But big hand for everyone that attended. Thank you.